Okay, we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Matthews-Bray, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at NJIT. Thank you for joining us for the first session of the Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series of the spring semester. I'm excited to welcome you to this afternoon's session, which focuses on the pursuit of purpose. The Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series focuses on lifelong learning, self-discovery, and skill development for individuals to achieve their full potential. Our goal throughout this series is to inspire and guide participants on their journey of continuous personal growth, equipping them with tools, mindset, and strategies to thrive in both professional and personal aspects of their lives. This is a four-part series that will take place virtually once a month until May. Before we jump in, I want to share some details about how things will work. When you entered, your microphones are muted, and we kindly ask that you keep muted throughout the presentation. We want this session to be interactive, and there'll be times when you'll have a chance to ask questions or share comments, and we'll let you know when those happen. You're welcome to keep your video on or off, whatever you're most comfortable with. Please feel free throughout the session to type questions or comments in the chat box. We're going to take some time at the end and we'll address some of those questions and comments. And lastly, this session is recorded and will be available on demand on our YouTube channel. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Dr. Michael Edmondson.
Hi, Kate. Thank you so much, my dear friend. Hi, everyone. If you're new to this, I'll just apologize for being my typical self. I grew up in Philly. I'm a first gen. I have a very, I guess, in-your-face type of conversation, even if it's over the internet. You'll get a link to this presentation at the end. Kate's, recording it as well. I want to thank you for your attendance today. I'm a big believer in the concept that if you want to grow as a professional, you have to grow as a person. So I've done a lot of studying in that arena. I can't see anyone, so if you can't see a slide or have an issue, please put it in the chat, and Kate can help navigate that, or Kate just yell out if there's an issue with the presentation. So I do want to, I got to hide my Zoom thing too. This is also annoying, isn't it? All these bars that we have. Okay. So I do want to just introduce to you my office at NJIT, my division. It's called the Learning and Development Initiative, or LDI. And the LDI, at the LDI, we're not even a year old. We launched April 11th of last year. It's a new initiative. We start with why in all that we do. And the why in all that we do is that the world is changing so rapidly. The why we do what we do is that we want to connect people to the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in an ever-changing world. And the what we offer is very simple. It's webinars, it's workshops, it's workforce development trainings, and it's whoops, let me see here. That didn't work. Let me see. I lost it. Let me see. Hold on a minute. Sorry. I'm trying to move the Zoom. I messed up the that thing. Okay, so let me just go here and here. All right, very good. And then I go back to here and share, and sorry about that, folks. So thank you. So you should be able to see my screen now. Is that correct? Are we good?
Yep, you're good.
Thanks. So the Learning and Development Initiative connects people to the skills and knowledge you need to succeed via webinars, workshops, courses. We do workforce development programs and a lot of custom training. So for example, we had 260 employees of the Newark Department of Public Health on campus in December, and we did a day long of custom training for them. So we do have a lot going on. I would invite you to check out our website, our ldi.njit.edu. We just launched the list of free webinars and workshops. Workshops are a little bit of money. I think they're all under $100 between now and the end of March. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have over 10 webinars and workshops. As Kate mentioned, this webinar is free to alumni and it's part of a series. So we have a lot to offer individuals and organizations. So if you're interested at all in learning more about how we can help your organization, please let me know. Happy to work with you. So this research for this presentation, actually for the presentations this semester, stemmed from my book, my 9th book that's coming out in March or April, called Achieving Productivity, 24 Essential Skills for High Performing Teams. Business Experts Press is my publisher. I am also serve as the co-editor of their organizational development and human resource management collection of books. And they've been just a super partner for 10 years now. And this is an exciting book. And the 24 Essential Skills link the personal and the professional together. And, we couldn't even talk about all 24 in 1 hour. There's just no way. Each one is a chapter in the book. There's a series of questions you can walk yourself through. And today's presentation really just focuses in on one part of one of the essential skills, right? So increasing your self-awareness, and we parse that out to focus in on purpose and what does purpose mean. So again, this is, God, there's like books and articles and workshop series on all of these all over the place, but no one's ever put them together to say, hey, these are essential skills of high performing teams. And when you get right down to it, these essential skills connect the soft skills with the technical or hard skills. And it's a new concept out in the learning and development space. Been doing a lot of talking about it and have gotten a lot of good feedback, and thus all that encouraged me to publish the book. So I do encourage all attendees to get pen and paper. I will ask you a series of questions. Actually, I want to run you through some exercises today. Like I said, if you can't follow along, get distracted or whatever, you'll have access to the presentation and to the recording as well. I'm a big believer in reflection. I teach oral presentation to NJIT undergrads on Tuesday nights. And the exercise everyone has to do a presentation every Tuesday night. And by Saturday midnight, they have to submit a reflection based on their presentation the prior Tuesday night. And there's a series of 12 elements of oral presentation that I teach them, and they have to follow, and they reflect on their performance of each of those 12. So reflection is really critical. And in today's hectic world that is so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, or VUCA, as the acronym goes, there's a lot of situations where we don't allow ourselves to reflect. But I think that reflection is really important. I mean, if you can do it with a friend, that's really helpful. Oftentimes, like if you can get someone at work to say, hey, you were at that meeting too. What did you think? Did you hear what I heard? Those reflection points are really important to help you process information. Because so much is coming at us, I do believe in the modern era. I mean, there's always been distractions. When the printing press was invented, in the 15th century, they thought the world was going to, end because all of a sudden now people weren't going to talk to one another. They were just going to read. It literally was the end of the world. There's all this research out there about how devastating people thought the printing press was. And with every successive generation and new technology, the same holds true. And now here we are with our generations is with AI, a continuation of the digital technology transformation that started, 15 years ago. And I say all that to say, please make reflection a key part of your day, because it's hard to get through these series of exercises I'm going to walk you through, because they're all reflection based. They're all reflection based. No one can help you answer these. I also want to publicly admit that what I'm asking you to do is hard. It is very hard. I am a big believer that you can work hard at hard work. You can do that. I gave a talk in the second week in January at Princeton for this organization called EdgeCon or Edge. and their conferences are called EdgeCon. And I was doing a presentation on AI in the workplace, and the gentleman in the front row, poor guy, couldn't get a seat elsewhere. He had to sit in the front and deal with me. He said, "Yeah, I don't like this. This is too hard, learning about AI." And by the way, I think I'm doing a webinar on AI for Kate and the alumni, maybe sometime in March. And I said, "Yeah, but you've done hard things before. You didn't get to this point in your career without doing hard things." And I say that to say that if if he reflected, he would have said, "Okay, learning about AI is hard, but I've already done hard things, so I can work hard at hard work one more time." Right. So again, that comes through reflection. If you don't reflect, you're not going to really understand yourself, and you really need to understand yourself. Remember, the Greeks, know thyself. So we're going to start off with a conversation about purpose with the Great Fire of London in 1666. My PhD is in history. I incorporate a lot of history in my talks. So I don't know if you know anything about the Great Fire of London, but it actually started, ironically enough, this is so funny, not funny that the fire happened, but it started in a bakery, and the bakery was located on Pudding Way, like Pudding Way. So the fire lasted 4 days, and it actually had, side note, it actually had a direct impact on how my hometown of Philadelphia was laid out. I'm sure you know the founder of Philadelphia, right? William Penn. He witnessed the Great Fire of London and decided to build the initial layout of Philadelphia, using row homes like London, but they were built of brick, and the streets were wider because he wanted to prevent a Great Fire of Philadelphia. So it's very interesting. So the Great Fire of London lasted 4 days in, I think, early September of 1666. And, excuse me, it occurred within the old city of London, where there was a Roman wall that formed the original part of London. And there's Pudding Lane there on the bottom right of the little map next to the London Bridge. You can see the Tower of London is adjacent, the River Thames. And then St. Paul's Cathedral is in this area of pink where the Great Fire was. So it encompassed a huge section of the city. And when it was all said and done, 13,000 homes were destroyed, 87 churches, the Great St. Paul's Cathedral, and sadly, it left 85% of London's population homeless. There's still a debate as to how many people died. The general consensus is very few people died. It just left almost everyone homeless. And it took 50 years to rebuild. And you're like, okay, this is interesting, Michael, but why are we talking about this in a webinar of purpose? That would be a very good question. This is St. Paul's Cathedral today. So story goes, I don't know, maybe it's apocryphal. There is a story that's been handed down from generation to generation that when Sir Christopher Wren now, the architect who was responsible for rebuilding most of London after the Great Fire, he was responsible for rebuilding St. Paul's Cathedral, seen here. He visits the cathedral that's undergoing this rebuilding, if you will, one day in 1671, and he comes across three masons working, and he says to the first one, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm laying bricks." And Christopher was like, "Okay, it's not really what he was looking for." So he finds another mason, and he says, "Sir, what are you doing here?" And the second mason said, "Well, I'm actually using bricks to create this wall that we need as part of the rebuilding." He said, "All right." So he gives it one more shot, and he goes to a third mason, third bricklayer, and he asked the same question, like, "What are you doing here?" And this mason said, "I'm helping to build one of the greatest cathedrals the world has ever known." And this story is often told in presentations of purpose Because in a very simplistic way, it lays out a very simple fact of you determine your purpose. Your vision of what it is that you're doing is how you speak to yourself. And more importantly, it's how others see you. So you could be seen as someone that's just laying bricks, and that would be a true statement. You could see yourself as someone creating a wall as part of the rebuilding, and that would be equally true. Or you could have an entirely different vision of your life and understand that your purpose is part of something much larger, and that is building a cathedral. And I want to start there because I'm assuming most of you have either a part-time job or a full-time job. Maybe you have more than one job. Maybe you're a parent of a newborn or a little child. Maybe you're a parent of, I have 2 adult children. Maybe you're a parent, of adolescents, young people in high school, whatever the case is. And invariably, you do get around to talking about purpose, probably, what do you want to do with your life, and so forth. And so, how you frame that conversation with the people in your life is really important. And so, whenever I talk about purpose, I weave in a couple of the different things that we're going to talk about today. And I do start here, is that you have a choice. Are you just laying bricks? Are you creating a wall? Or do you see yourself as doing something much larger? And again, let me just reiterate, this is on you. How you view what you're doing is on you, not on anyone else. So it's interesting. I don't know if I've looked into this. I still can't verify this story, but I've seen it told, similarly by different people throughout the ages. So I do like it and I do use it because it's a very purposeful exercise. So I'm going to go over 6 steps. I mean, we only, usually have like 45 minutes. I want to leave time for questions at the end or comments in the chat. So I want to just talk about 6 steps to help you create your purpose. And it is something that you create. I mean, there is a life paradigm out there that you either, you're a master of your own domain, you create the circumstances of your life, or life happens to you. And I really do firmly believe that you create your own destiny. Sometimes it's really hard to hold on to that belief, but as someone that's been through a lot, understand that, yep, it really is true that I am solely responsible for my reaction to life. And I try to hold on to these exercises I'm going to give you as much as I can. Never perfect, never perfect, but at least I try to remind myself and those that I teach, those in my life, as much as possible. So the very first thing we're going to do here today is define your why. And if you notice, when I talked about the Learning and Development Initiative, the LDI, in the very beginning of this talk, I started with why. Why do we do what we do? Forget about what we do. That's great. Why are you doing it? Well, if you don't know why you're doing something, stop doing it. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. If you don't know why you're doing something, you gotta really stop and think and reflect and ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? Right? I mean, you might do it at work. Sometimes you don't do it at work. I mean, this is not a decision-making workshop. There's something called single loop decision-making, double loop decision-making. I won't get into it here, but what it comes down to is one asks why and one doesn't ask why. And when I work with teams, they understand the rationale for that. So you have to really figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Again, this comes through reflection, because you can't answer that unless you're looking at yourself. So one of the books, there's a few books and resources I'll give you here. The very first book I would recommend is from Simon Sinek. This was his early bestseller called Start With Why. And this is, and if you do have pen and paper, this is a very easy illustration to take down. It's 3 circles. And, he called it the golden circle exercise. You put in the center why you do what you do. Then you put how you do what you do. And then you put what you do. What the hell do you do? So oftentimes it's reversed, right? Or the why isn't found at all. You go to a party, you go to a networking event, a conference. Oh, what do you do? It's not often easy, but I often would say, let's talk about why I do what I do first. And I get I'm like I got 3 heads. But if you understand why you do what you do, you actually have a commonality with people sooner than what you do, right? And I love this exercise. I have my team go through it. That's how we, created the words on the website. We went through this exercise. Well, why are we doing what we're doing? Well, why? Because we care about people. We want to help them succeed. Well, how do you do that? Oh, well, how is you got these custom training programs, webinars, workshops, whatever. And what do you do? Well, what we do is we teach to the workforce skills that are required today and the knowledge, right? Like I said, I'm doing an alumni webinar on AI. I mean, I've done that workshop or that presentation several times now. So really start with why. And if you haven't asked yourself why you're doing what you're doing, that's fine. Now you know, and that's something to consider doing. But I want to spend a little bit more time on the Japanese concept, generally pronounced ikigai, that combines 4 aspects of your life. And now, if you don't know one of these 4, that's fine. Like, don't fret. Again, this is hard work. You got to work hard at this stuff. You got to engage in a lot of reflection, and it's okay. I'm just giving you these exercises to see, if you're really interested, you could do it. You can quickly do it now, or it's probably best after the webinar. So the very first thing is your mission. Like, what is your mission in life? The second thing is what your vocation is. The third is what your profession is. And the fourth is what your passion is. Now, I'm not a big fan of the word passion. I don't want to get too philosophical here. But, if you look at the etymology of the word passion, it does have its origins in language that suggests it means something you would die for. You should never, unless you have a very specific, job, a very specific job, you're probably not going to die for your job. Okay. But we'll use passion as it is generally understood here as this intense love of something. It's not exactly correct, but we'll let that, Michael, I got to let that go. So I'll let it go. So what are these? So your mission is like, what's the world need? It's a combination of what you love and what the world needs. Vocation is, what do you get paid for and what the world needs? Because there is this overlap, right? Profession is what you get paid for and what you're good at. And then passion is what you're good at and what you love, right? And so there's a disconnect when people are working at a job for the money and they haven't spent the time reflecting on their passion, their mission, or their vocation. Unless you're independently wealthy, and if you are, kudos to you. Most people need a job. And P.S. Gallup, the polling agency, will tell us in its latest report that 45% of American workers are struggling and another 5% are suffering. So 50% of American workers are suffering or struggling. And I give this exercise because I just assume statistically, half of you are either suffering or struggling. Hopefully that's not the case, but Gallup tells me that if there's a room of 40 people, 20 of them are probably struggling to some degree. So I get, when I design these webinars, I do that in mind in the hopes that if someone is struggling, they look at this and they're like, oh, maybe I'm struggling because I haven't figured out what my passion is or what my vocation is. kind of just have this sucky job that I have for money. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But this ikigai, this exercise here can change the course of your life. Now, how can that be? Because of a couple things, a couple dynamics. And I could go off the deep end on this because one of my pet peeves in life. You do not have to have a dream job or a perfect job. I don't even know what that is. I love my job. I love my team. I love NJIT. But I would never call it a dream job because I can't define what that is. It doesn't make any sense to me. And whenever I talk to young people, and this past Saturday, I was the keynote speaker at NJIT for the student leadership one-day workshop that they had. I'm so honored to be the keynote there. And I harp on this every time I talk to young people. Their rates of anxiety are so high. The pressures we put on young people are ridiculous. Speaking as a father, I know. So I always try to turn down the volume a little bit. You don't need to have a perfect job because I don't know what that looks like, right? Stop it. Your only task is to figure out what to do next. Like, and if someone says, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Have them call me and I will yell at them because no one knows at 18 or 20. And you didn't know at 18 or 20 what you wanted to do. And by the way, P.S., all cards on the table. The students of today are going to have jobs not yet, that haven't been invented yet, using technology that hasn't been created to solve problems we haven't even identified. So how could you possibly in 2025 tell an 18, a 20, a 24, a 28-year-old, or ask them the question what they want to do for the rest of their lives when all the research is overwhelmingly clear? They don't even know what jobs are going to exist in 10 or 15 or 20 years. So stop the insanity. Stop the insanity, people. You do not have to search for your dream job. And if you get it, it may not even last very long because of the volatility of the global job market. So stop it. But what you can do is you can design your own reason for being. You can identify your purpose, update it as your life changes. Maybe you get married, you have a child, or you take care of your parents, whatever the case is. You're not going to have one purpose your entire life or one reason for being that's going to change as you change, right? So you can do more than one thing with your life. You can. I could do a whole day seminar on successful authors and sculptors and artists and musicians that kept their day job and did their art on the weekends and at night because they liked their day job and they didn't want to count on their art solely for money. So they kept their job at an insurance company like Kafka did. Or this Wall Stevens, I think it was Wall Stevens, was he the physician that wrote poetry on his way to and from his physician practice? You can do more than one thing with your life. You are allowed. No one needs to give you permission. And in fact, the most successful people I know have more than one business card. And it's awesome because those people understand ikigai. They understand I have a mission, I have a passion. I can't do that full time, but I really don't want to do that full time. I've written 9 books. I don't want to be a writer full time. I don't. I really like my job. I love what I do for NJIT. I would never give that up. But I practice yoga. I was a yoga certified yoga instructor. I don't want to make money from yoga. I don't want to, right? But I love my day job. You can do more than one thing. And the example I have for you, this is a new one that I found recently, is this young man, Daniel Harding. He's a maestro and he flies for Air France. I mean, could they be two wildly different occupations, right? He's a conductor, classically trained, Oxford trained maestro. And then he said, I'm not really part of a team. Well, and you're the maestro. You're not part of the pit, right? You're conducting. Obviously, you know what a conductor does, but he's not part of the team. He said the conductor is the only person on stage who can do absolutely nothing on their own. He's not part of the team. He's leading the team. And he said, what I love about being a pilot is once I put on that uniform, I'm part of a team. Oh my God, imagine that, right? Head blown. Wait, you're a pilot and a maestro? Yes. Do what it is that you want to do. Find your purpose, and it can be two wildly different things. It's okay. No one has to give you permission, and you should not seek permission. Go and do, go and do, go and be, go and create the life that you want. Is it hard? Yes. Hell yes. Very hard. Very hard. And people will say, no, you can't. Then you say, why not? Daniel Harding flies for Air France and is a maestro. I can do these two things that I want to do. You can tell I go ballistic on these because it just infuriates me. The older I get, and I talk to people in their 40s and 50s, and they're either frustrated, they haven't lived the life that they wanted, or they're not happy at their job. I'm like, well, go do what it is that you want to do somehow, even if it's an hour a night, 2 hours a night, 3 hours a week, whatever the case is. You can. There are options. If you don't want to consider them, I can't help you, but I can help you process options. Second thing, that was all number one, and I got to get moving here. So the second thing is align your actions with your values. So ensure your daily choices reflect, there's that word again, your core beliefs and long-term goals. Now, your goals are going to change. Your goals are going to absolutely change, right? I always tell the story. I was in Augustana College, job I loved, team I loved, doing really good work I really loved. Then my dad died all of a sudden. He was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer June 28th, died July 10th. My God, it'll be 10 years this July 10th. And he and my mom, just high school, graduates, um, typical old Italian couple in Philly, and had lived in New Jersey, actually next to us in South Jersey. And after a couple months, like my mom she needed more support, and I had to leave my job. And I loved my job, and I loved my people. I went into my provost at the time, and she's still a dear friend of mine, and she looked at me and she said, "You got to go home and take care of your mom." I didn't have to say anything. I'm like, "Yeah, it's breaking my heart," right? Because I understood that my core value had changed. My core value was from being aware of my parents, loving my parents, the only 2 years I lived away from them, to then not just being aware and supporting them from afar, but now being up close and taking care of my mom. I told my dad as he was passing that I would take care of mom, and my sister, of course, helped a lot more than I did some days. But my values changed because all of a sudden my life situation changed, right? And so your values, instilled in me by my parents, had a reboot because of the life situation. So, you could draw a tree if you've got, pen and paper, or again, afterwards, you can ask yourself, okay, what are the roots of my life system? Life system. What are the 3, 4 things that I value above all else? And if you've never done this exercise, that's fine. Now you have an opportunity, to do that and ask yourself, what are my values now? And have my values changed over time? And if you have children, then you ask yourself, well, what values am I passing on to them? What values do they have? Right? Like, one of the heartbreaking things is when you have a parent that's taught their children good values, and for whatever reason, their child does not, practice those values. And it's very heartbreaking, to talk to parents who have experienced that. Very, very sad, very heartbreaking. So this is a very, important exercise to engage in. And these 6 exercises, they're all connected. I mean, it helps to know what your core values are if you go over your Ikigai. and you figure out like what you're passionate about, what what is your mission in life. And again, when I work with people, when we do like workshops about this, you would do this right in the workshop. You draw your tree and, and share like some of what your core values are. And, it's really interesting in a room, right, of 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever people, a lot of times the core values are the same, right? So your views on life situations may differ, but your core values are the same. And that actually is a unifying theme among people who think they're actually different than each other. And oftentimes I help them understand you're actually not that different at all. Your core values are the same. You're just viewing some things differently. And if you can at least start with a shared sense of core values, I think we can meet in the middle and really build bridges instead of just acting in such a destructive manner in which we now do. Another book I highly recommend is How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. Clayton Christensen really did a lot of work with the Innovator's Dilemma, taught at Harvard, and I'm giving you this quote. It's one of my favorite because so many people think that the destination was what was important, right? The dream job, the dream house, the dream salary. But that's not really what was important. At the end, it was the journey. And I would add who you meet along the journey. Who are the people that you meet who help you on your journey? And as you move forward in your journey, how do you treat those people? Like, are you kind to them? In last night's class, several of my students had the topic of what's the difference between nice and kindness. And it was very interesting to hear them discuss their interpretations of the two words based on research. So again, as you're looking for your purpose, are you just solely focused on your destination? Do you have to get the corner office? Must you be the CFO, COO, CEO, whatever it is that you must be? Is that really in line with your values? And are you pursuing your destination to such an extent that you're ignoring your journey and everyone along your journey with you? More importantly, are you part of anyone's journey? Are you helping anyone on their life journey? I mean, again, you can only know this through reflection. So if you want to understand purpose, another dynamic is to understand, well, are you part of anyone else's purpose? Or are you so caught up in yourself that you're just running roughshod? I've met these people. I've worked with these people. No one at NJIT, of course. I've worked with these people that we use everyone in their path, complete disregard for everyone else. They're so focused on the destination. And I, for my own mental health, have learned, especially over like the last 10, 15 years of my career, I cannot engage with those people. I just can't. I can't because they're not just beliefs, but their actions run counter to my values. And as hard as I have tried to connect with them, I can't because our values are so different. And I've understood that through reflection. The third of the 6 exercises here is to understand that purpose is achieved through deliberate and focused action, not chance. I say that to say I have a whole other webinar on the role of chance and serendipity in life, but we're going to just put that on the shelf right now. But purpose is achieved through deliberate and focused action. So here I'm going to give you, and if anyone is in education, you might be familiar with this. This is known as Kolb's learning cycle. I spent a lot of time in this. So this is a 4-step process that I take people through when they have a life experience. And there's all kinds of literature on this. You could Google Kolb's learning cycle. And it helps them in a structured manner reflect and plan a step forward, right? So Kolb's learning cycle is an approach that's been around for many decades. It has been used by educators around the world. and even in many learning and development offices in corporations and organizations around the world. Because at every workplace, you have an event, you have a meeting, you have a product, a service that's being developed, right? You have something going on. And the better managers incorporate some kind of learning cycle into the work process. My team engages in reflection every week. We draw some conclusions, and then we experiment. That is Kolb's learning cycle. First step is, hey, we did something. We launched a product, we launched a service, we had a webinar, we had a workshop. I showed you all the workshops we've got. And here's some inside scoop. It's so inside scoop. The times of some of those workshops are 7 to 9 at night. Well, why is that? Because my team has reflected on prior workshops, concluded that some people might not have time during the day, and now we're actively experimenting with times at night to see if we can capture others who are available at night who are unavailable during the day. We only got to that updated schedule for February and March workshops because we engaged in Kolb's learning cycle. They didn't know what it was. I just embed this in all that we do. You don't have to go all formal, and structured, but I embed it in our formal work process. We have an event, whatever it was, we reflect on it, we make some conclusions, and we figure out a way to move forward with some experimenting. We do it all the time. It's like everyone says, okay, let's reflect. Let's reflect. I got two huge walls in our office suite, and they're whiteboard paint. And there's nothing but reflection on the whiteboard paint. You cannot have a high achieving team, a highly productive team. You can't find purpose in your life. You can't help people find purpose unless there is active reflection. And a lot of people don't like to do that because they don't like to look at themselves. Again, I can't help with that. I can just provide the structure as outlined here. So I hope this makes sense. You can Google Kolb's learning cycle. I'm sure you can find worksheets and things, but it is fairly straightforward and it is very simple. You have a concrete experience, you reflect on that, give it enough time. Now, sometimes I need 2, 3, 4 days, 2, 3, or 4 days to process my reflection. You don't have to do it right away. And then I meet with my team or I sit down with myself, draw some conclusions, and then figure out, okay, I want to try this A, B, and C next time. We did A1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to experiment with, A, B, and C. So the fourth thing is to prioritize what matters most and emphasize what is most important in your life, but more importantly, make time and room for it. If you've identified your purpose, that's wonderful. But if you don't allocate time for it, that's not going to be very helpful. So when you get this, I won't play it. We're running out of time. And this is a very well-known video on YouTube called the mayonnaise jar experiment. It's very inspirational. It's a professor that walks into a college classroom. And he has a jar. And in that jar, he puts big rocks in first, smaller pebbles in, and then sand. And every time that he puts something in, he'll put the rocks in and he'll ask the students, is this jar filled? Now, it's a glass jar, they can see. And they'll say, oh yeah, it looks filled. And then he puts in smaller pebbles. You get 12, 20 of those. And he says, is it filled now? And they're like, yeah. And then he pours in sand, and that sand fills in all the, open areas in the jar. And he said, is it filled now? And then it really is filled. And they're like, absolutely. So, and it's a really, I think, impactful way that resonates with people, because the whole point is your life is like the glass jar. The rocks, the bigger rocks, are the things that matter most to you: your family, your loved ones, your values. The pebbles are things that are out there, right? Maybe your job, if you have a hobby, if you have some kind of interest, maybe you volunteer, maybe you could even include your car in there if you wanted. And then the sand is everything else: what people think of you, how people treated you during the course of your day, what people, when you were driving to work and someone cut you off. Like, the whole point is you've got to make time for the things that matter most. And if you don't know what your rocks are, right, then everything matters to you, which means nothing matters to you, right? You've got to identify the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rocks that you have, right? I'll give you a personal example. I'm a first-time pop. My daughter and her wife my daughter-in-law gave birth. So our daughter and her wife now are first-time moms. I'm from first-time pop. The baby's a month old. The baby, now my grandson, is now a rock. It's a new rock that's in my jar that did not exist before. Did he replace something? I don't know. I don't think so. Right? I just think the love that a child brings deserves its rightful place in your life. Again, just my value, whatever yours are. So Lucas Michael is now a rock that is, firmly planted in my jar, and not the sole focus, but a main focus of my daily life. And actually, right before this, my daughter texted me a picture of him. So I was thinking, oh, he's actually a rock now. He's actually a rock. And all the other little things, yeah, just kind of let go. Whatever. I'm gonna go see my grandson. I'll see you later. You go worry about the other stuff. And if you manage people, it really helps you as a manager to identify when someone comes to you, is it a rock, a pebble, or a piece of sand? So I just came from a meeting and someone said, I usually am like, okay, don't worry about it. Just please focus in on the 2 or 3 things you're working on. People get caught up in the sand, all the time. They get caught up, sand gets in their ears, it gets in their eyes. I'm like, yeah, you just stop. Focus on your rocks. Only you can do that. And if you're a leader or manager, that's your responsibility. You got to remind them of what the rocks are. The fifth exercise here to help you find your purpose is to actually ask yourself the question, are you making a positive impact on others? There's a lot of research. This is from the Mayo Clinic Health System from August of 23. They did a research and they talked about, 3 health benefits of volunteering, right? It lowers stress, lowers anxiety, right? It increases happiness. Helping others, serving others does a lot of physical and mental good. And that's a side note, I have no evidence for this, but those people that will just run over everyone in their life to get to their destination, they often don't volunteer. And if they do volunteer, I've noticed they're only doing it to get to where they want to go. And I'm like, yeah, I see what you're doing, and it's okay if you're blind to it all. But so I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people that generally enjoy helping others, right? There's our physical and mental health benefits. So if you're struggling with, hey, I don't know what my purpose is, just go start volunteering somewhere. That's all. Just volunteer. See what feeling that gives you. Like, we have 2 dogs. We adopted a rescue. I'd never adopted a rescue, and I always wanted to. And I jumped at that chance 3 years ago. I learned a lot about rescues and rescue dogs, and boy, it has really changed my life, just having a rescue and learning what it meant to help that dog who had a horrible first 18 months as a dog. Horrible. I can't get into it here. And he's now the most loving dog we've ever had. And so volunteering and helping others, or even if it is adopting a rescue pet, it can help you find your purpose. And a lot of times I will recommend this if people are lost, just go volunteer. What do you like? I like the water. Great. There are nonprofits that, support clean water. Go volunteer there. Right. Or I like, kids. Great. Go to the local library, go volunteer to read to little kids. They got all kinds of programs. So you can help yourself. You can help find your purpose. And if nothing else, right, if you go back to the Ikigai, if you go volunteer, you can then help maybe discover like what your mission is. Or is this part of your passion? Right. So again, you can really, as Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Go help others and forget about yourself for a while and see how you feel. I think that's an important exercise. And finally, if you're familiar with the Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece, one of their philosophies, right, is memento mori. Remember, you must die. Remember, you must die. Everyone, unless in the next couple of decades, AI agents become so strong and we have artificial super intelligence, that humans will be able to live forever because of the medicine. So who knows? But for all of humanity, right, memento mori has been a Stoic belief. And if you remember you must die, it actually helps you understand to live with purpose and perspective. And the last book that I have for you is, you may be familiar with this, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and who was in the concentration camps during the Second World War. And his great quote is, "Life's never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." And I often found in the people that I talk to who have a very, I guess, just sad or negative or just bleak kind of outlook on a life situation is that they're really lacking meaning and purpose. And I do what I can, but ultimately you got to help yourself. And this is a good way to end the webinar because you, as I said in the very beginning, you are solely responsible for your finding your purpose. So then you are solely responsible for finding, your meaning in life. And hopefully you surround yourself with enough people that help you with that. And it's extremely important. This is when you get this presentation, hopefully you can click on this link. If not, Google it. This is Maya Angelou, the beautiful poet Maya Angelou. And so this was an interview, I think in the 70s. And the interviewer was talking about Maya Angelou's ability to be present in any moment. And she said, well, what allowed me to find my purpose and to be present was the fact that I had to have a conversation with myself and accept that I was going to die. And the reporter was like, yeah, but doesn't that mean if you have to get the most out of every day, you're going to take? And Maya Angelou quickly responded and said, no, it's actually quite the opposite. It's about give. There's no benefit in taking. The benefit is in giving others, giving of yourself, right? Helping others. And that becomes liberating when you're able to say, I'm here for a short period of time. I understand I have a purpose. Part of my purpose, my ikigai, is to help others. And it's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And so this is my email. You have my email. This, and again, you'll see this. I'm on LinkedIn. Please LinkedIn with me if you'd like. This is the URL, tinyurl.com/NJIT020525. That is where the URL is. And as I often say, I am happy to talk to you afterwards. If it's 2 months from now, and you're like, hey, Michael, I attended your webinar back in February. Great, email me, find me on LinkedIn. Happy to help you any way that I can along your life journey. I wish you well. And I thank Kate for the opportunity. And I thank all of you for attending this webinar. I think we've got 4 minutes, for questions or thoughts. So Kate, if there's comments there, or I see a few comments, I'll just keep that up for one more second. And Let me see. Let me try to get to the comments here.
Thank you so much. Folks, we have about 4 minutes left. If you'd like to unmute and ask any questions or type in questions to the chat and I can, feel free.
Thank you everyone for the congratulations. Yeah, I mean, being a pop-up was actually altered, I think, the fabric of my existence. I'm consumed with the future now. And I've never been a pop-up, so I've been reflecting a lot, maybe an unhealthy amount. Like, what does it mean to be a pop-up? Like, what kind of pop-up do I want to be? I don't know. I've never been one. So that's actually been consuming a lot of my energy. So thank you for the good wishes, everyone. Thank you.